So hi, I'm Chase, and we are going to sell some integrations today. So API integration is becoming a revenue priority. And it's because organizations now live within application ecosystems. And so when I use this term application ecosystem, it's this notion that your business has all of its applications, but you also have your customers and your partners and your prospects as well. So it's kind of the ability to move between those applications. And it's how you connect to these ecosystems that affects your customers, your revenue, and most importantly, what we're going to talk about today, your potential revenue. So integrations are a great way to make repeatable, sticky customer experiences, but they're also a great way to reduce churn. So even if you're not like a pillar application, which I'll use as kind of like marketing automation or CRM or ERP, even if you're kind of that secondary or ancillary product, but you're tied into multiple different applications, it becomes a lot harder for you to remove and reduce a lot of churn. So we recently came out with a State of API Integration report, and one of the questions we ask is, approximately what percentage of your user base will upgrade or renew if you have integrations? Long story short, no one said no, right? We're not going to do that. And there's kind of multiple percentages, but if you sum it up, we actually found that you can actually reduce churn by up to 60% if you have integrations at the right place and at the right depth. So 60%, that's a decent amount, right? So that's a big business case for integrations, which is why it's now getting more attention from the board level. And the reason why churn is so important is because it affects your customer lifetime value, right? And so this becomes more important because customer lifetime value can also impact your valuation. So if you're kind of in the SaaS software world, customer lifetime value is one of those metrics that you track. And if that starts to go down, investors know that they need more sales and marketing dollars to maintain that, right, and kind of get back up there. So it directly impacts the valuation of your organization. So let's talk a little bit about how to sell those integrations now that we know it's important. So at Cloud Elements, I looked after our product and alliances marketing group, but I'm also the go-to-market lead for our customer onboarding. So Cloud Elements, we're an embedded integration platform, and so we OEM a lot of different integrations. And similar, the best way that we can help prevent churn for our customers is actually to help them sell their integrations and help them market it. And so I put this lesson together so these are a lot of lessons learned and understandings from what we do with our customer base and direct learnings from kind of over a dozen companies that I've worked with. And within each of these companies, we all focus on this customer experience of adoption. Because really, when you think about integrations, it's a high trust scenario. And so once you get over that initial adoption curve, then it's a little bit more of a set it and forget it type of sale. But getting over that first barrier of adoption is key. And so that's really what we focus on. And so in order to do that, we kind of need to take another step back and understand why we're doing that. So one of the first things we coach our customers is understanding what is the use case that you live within. So the first one I'll talk about is enhanced views. So one of our customers, Western Union, they have a product called Western Union Edge. So it allows users to kind of log in and they can pay invoices and purchase orders and kind of manage their money in multiple different currencies, right? And so this is helpful for on-the-ground purposes. And so you can imagine the change in the user experience. Instead of just logging into QuickBooks and then Googling to see what the Canadian dollar is up to today and whether or not want to pay that, they now log in directly into Western Union Edge, knowing that their integrations on the back end to either QuickBooks, NetSuite, or other ERPs are going to be taken care of. So that's one kind of enhanced view that you can focus on. The second one is kind of what I'll call beginning to end scenarios. So these are a lot of kind of the lead to customer, quote to cash, hire to retire, these business optimization processes kind of where you live in. So here's just a quick one of contact to opportunity with a notification at the end. But just understanding where you live within a customer's business process can be enlightening in of its own self. And the final one, which is kind of a little bit more of a catch-all, is a marketplace approach, right? And so this is where customers live within multiple ecosystems. So imagine that use case you extended from lead all the way to cash. Now you're touching, marketing operations at the front and then moving over into CRM, and then it touches an e-signature platform, and then that gets over into NetSuite and procurement. And so now you're touching multiple types of or hubs of services within that ecosystem. So those are typically the three type of buckets that our customers fall into. And once you understand the use case and kind of where you are and how you're selling, then you can get to work on your messaging and positioning. So this is a little bit more like sales and marketing heavy, as it should be, because small changes in your messaging and your positioning can actually drive a lot of customer behavior. And remember that integration is very much a high trust scenario. So if you can drive that forward, then you can earn that trust. So now I'm going to spend a couple minutes talking about pricing and packaging, because this is another thing that we coach our customers on, kind of how to bring integrations to market. So again, kind of 3 different buckets. But the first one that we usually see the most is kind of included for all. And so this is typically with customers who are kind of seeing integrations as table stakes within their amongst their competition and with their customers, right? So if they don't have integration, then they might move on and look at other vendors. So I actually got an email from BuzzSumo just on the way here to Austin, and it's like, great, 2 REST APIs, here you go. Thanks for being a customer, right? So it's automatically included in their pricing and packaging plan. The second one, and more the popular one that we'll see, is actually included within a tier. So if you think about kind of traditional SaaS pricing models, you have like your freemium version, something a little bit better, something in between, then like enterprise, just give us a call. And so integrations are a really helpful way to kind of add another partition in that pricing model. So that way, as you have your core value propositions as well, but it also gives you a way to upsell your existing customer base into a new pricing tier. And that becomes, so not only are you getting additional revenue out of your existing customer base, but they're automatically becoming more sticky. So you can kind of see that is slowly working away against those churn numbers there. And the final one, which we don't see too often, is standalone pricing. So this is typically for like very complex onboarding integration scenarios. Typically you'll see these within like the larger ERPs and like financial systems of the world, where when someone comes on, it just takes a lot more hand-holding. And it's also kind of seen within the average selling price amongst these, right? So if it's a little bit more on the table stakes, it's kind of more of a generic, but then, as you need more hand-holding, it naturally becomes more expensive. So again, kind of coming back to that report, one of the other key findings that we found was in 2019, the majority shifted actually into, charging for that API and integration service, right? So it's becoming a little bit less of a table stakes, and people are starting to understand the value of charging for those integrations and creating a holistic sales model. Okay, so like now how do you actually sell them, right? And how do you actually market your integrations? And so the process that we work through with our customers, I call it kind of the inside-out adoption. So first we start with that internal goodness, right? So this is the biggest, juiciest part of basically just making sure that everyone is aware that you have integrations, right? Company announcements, kind of internal Slacks, whatever it might be, but just making sure that people understand that you now have integrations in addition to your core features and product. As we move on from there, we do the internal extension work. So this is typically involving anyone who's customer facing. So sales engineers, sales, marketing, support, customer success. This is where you dive a little bit deeper into lunch and learns, how to actually handle a support ticket if it comes up for integration, how to speak to it. And then finally, we work on the external packaging. And this is actually where a lot of my team works on with our customers. And so we ghostwrite blogs, we help with press release announcements, webinars, co-speaking engagements, those types of things. So this is actually wrapping everything up into the market. And so while that's the most that's the most visible piece out of all 3 of them, you need all 3 in order to make it, successfully adoptable, because everyone in the organization needs to understand where integration plays. So I'm gonna spend a couple minutes about like what not to do, because that's always fun. So for those who attended Alan's talk in the evening keynote yesterday, he kind of had this slide with field of dreams, right? If you build it, they will come. That's great. And integration kind of suffers from the same thing. We have a lot of customers who are just product-driven desire and be like, well, we want integrations because it's great. Who doesn't love integrations? But that's not always the case. So integrations actually suffer from the endowment effect. So this endowment effect, it's kind of this notion that if you own something, it's more valuable to you than if you kind of were to buy it and purchase it later, right? So just the fact of owning something makes it inherently more valuable to you. And integrations are often like that, right? Because it's like, it's not kind of ours, it's a little bit us, a little bit of you. You know, we're not quite sure where it lives. And it's usually not sold the same as the core value proposition, even though it might be priced and packaged the same. So what you need to do is actually need to combine the value of the core proposition plus the integration and kind of whatever that, you know, don't blame me, but you know, that synergy, right? So to give an example, right? So for Nordic APIs, say we came out with a new event management app and it will automatically rate how much people love APIs. Great, sounds good. And how about we have that plus LinkedIn and MailChimp integrations? Cool, that's even better. But then if you say, well, I have this event management app that will actually go through LinkedIn, make sure that all the contact details are correct so that way the team has less manual effort. And then in addition, we will import that into MailChimp and you can send everyone emails to the sessions they liked so that way they're more likely to come back to the next event. Well, I want that one, right? Because now you're introducing not only your core value prop, but you're also saving time and you're giving the customer more potential value, more potential revenue. So it's that ability to combine all those pieces into a holistic strategy. The best way to do that is to create some ownership around it. And this is, you know, oftentimes it can come in the form of executive ownership, which is great if you have it. But the easiest way is actually just put a number attached to it, right? Give some people some quota, go sell some integrations, see what the field team comes back with. Another key finding we found is people don't like the term beta next to integrations, which is pretty interesting. So we had a major video conferencing customer who you've probably downloaded multiple versions of in past computers and past lives. But their goal was to say, hey, we want 5 beta customers by the end of the month. That sounds great. So we checked in a little bit later and we're like, well, we didn't really have anyone come on. We had a couple. But the feedback we got was people didn't understand what beta meant with an integration, right? So they didn't know where the data was going, and it inherently created that like, I don't want to try it. I'll just stick to CSVs and deal with the pain that we already have. And so what we found was you need to be very specific about what you're giving the customer in their integration, right? So say, look, bulletproof, you are going to get name, email address, job title, guaranteed. And you can always start there in kind of a land and expand approach, but it's much easier in saying like, and general contact information. You might get Canadian zip codes. We don't know, right? It's a little bit of a different sell. So be very specific in kind of what you're serving up in your integrations when you're going out to the market. Another thing, people don't integrate just off of an email. You'll get those few for sure. But like I mentioned, integration is kind of a high trust scenario, and so it's going to need multiple touches and kind of understanding where you're living at. Not to say that we don't love email, because this is actually one of the tactics that my team does. We do a lot of copywriting for emails and kind of announcements out. It's just, you know, living in B2B enterprise software, people love email. But it requires more than that. It requires exploring their ecosystem. So I'm going to give you an example here. So HubSpot, in addition to the kind of their account management rep, they'll call you up once a quarter and say, hey, how's HubSpot going? You're like, oh my goodness, I absolutely love it. But the question they always ask is, can you tell me what other applications you have HubSpot integrated into? So this immediately gives the account manager a sense of whether or not you're churn risk, right? Because if you're like, I don't integrate into anything, we just use it for lead capture. It's like, okay. But if your response is, well, we actually have it integrated into our CRM and then these other applications and we use it for lead attribution coming back and then we provide this dashboard out, that gives the account management rep a better sense of where they live within that ecosystem, right? So coming back to this ecosystem idea, understanding not only what your organization provides, but how your customers are leveraging it, how your customers, your partners, and your prospects across that holistic ecosystem, you get a better sense of, well, maybe here's the next integration, right? It might be BuzzSumo, and we have that pulled in because we've heard a lot of customers using that. And it can actually start to guide your product roadmap a little bit more. So just to summarize a little bit, so really integrations help out a lot with churn, right? Up to 60% if you have it at the right use case and at the right level. But in order to do that, you need to combine the value propositions of integrations plus your core value product. Otherwise, you're just selling it a la carte, right? So it's like you coming to Austin, you're like, I would like some brisket. But you come to Austin because you're like, I want brisket and slaw and beans, and I want to wait outside in, you know, for a trailer park at 6 hours to go to Franklin's, right? You create that whole experience. And you need to create some ownership around it. So having that ownership, put a sales number around it. Salespeople are really good at coming up with value propositions, right? Allow them to run with that in the field. You need to inform the positioning and the messaging of your integrations, making sure that it works in tandem with exploring your customer's application. Understanding where they live within that ecosystem, and these two work in tandem to kind of feed each other as you constantly provide more integrations out to the market, because usually people aren't just satisfied with 1 or 3 or 50. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I'll answer some questions in the panel, but if you have some other ones, this is me. Thank you so much.